All right, we should be live now. Hello, everyone. Let me turn that. Let me turn that off. Hey, everyone. Hello again on the Dev Impressions show. My name is Chris. I'm a software developer. I'm also host of this show, this small talk show. And today I'm joined by Isaac Abraham, F# MVP, I believe. Uh, Founder of Compositional IT, which is F# consulting company, and great member of community, author of several tools that we will talk today, including like Farmer and SafeStack. Thanks for joining me, Isaac.
No worries. Thanks for the invite. Always great to catch up with you.
Yeah. Anything else I should tell? We should tell people about you. I forgot about the most important one, the big Tottenham fan.
Let's,
So.
let's not talk
I,
about
I
that.
bet you're super happy about like Chelsea, right?
I was kind of ambivalent. It was different a few years ago when we actually had a chance of doing something. At the moment, we're just so far behind. It's just can just watch on with kind of jealousy really at the moment.
Yeah.
But, there we go. It's a while since we've beaten Real Madrid 3-1. So
Yeah, I know the feeling. Like, I mean, this season was not the greatest one for Real as well. So,
yeah. There you go.
so what was the worse? The Chelsea winning Champions League this year, or the Liverpool winning like 2 years ago or
No,
something like that?
Liverpool
Yeah.
was worse. Especially because it wasn't even really an exciting game. It's like they scored after like 2 minutes, then defended for 88 minutes, and then they scored again. And it was just neither games I thought were that exciting. The Chelsea Man City game, wasn't
Yeah.
really that exciting either. So there you go. You win some, you lose some. In Tottenham's case, a bit more losing than winning.
Well, I know that from my like local club, which is on the like second level at the moment in Poland, which
right.
uh, stuff happens. So on the same topic, I know that you're like living in Germany nowadays. So
Mhm.
for Euro, do you root for Germany or still like only England?
It was funny actually. I was chatting with my wife about that today. I think we actually do have two flags in the house, like an England and a Germany one. So I'll probably put them both out on the balcony. We had a deal like 3 years ago when I wasn't German at the time, and I can't remember what it was, but I think we had both flags by the TV, and then it was like whoever gets knocked out first, their flag has to go down, and the other one has to go up. And like Germany got knocked out of the group stage, so yeah, the England flag was flying higher than the George Cross.
Yeah,
But this year I think it'll be both. It'll be both.
yeah, probably. Especially that getting out of groups is super easy because like three teams can get out.
Yeah, yeah. So even
Uh,
England might do that this year.
well, actually, the first game was really good, right? The Croatia one.
We played well. I mean, Croatia. I think they're lacking a bit up front, so they didn't really threaten us too much. But yeah. There you go. What was the Poland score, by the way?
We've lost to Slovakia
What was the
2-1.
score? I saw something like who's the goalkeeper? Chesney.
Szczesny, yeah.
Yeah, he apparently made some mistake or something.
Yeah, so it was like kind of both like defender mistake and the goalkeeper. Yeah, it was sad moment. He's like super unlucky goalkeeper. Like on every like international event, he makes some mistake that kind of like he either got red card or like causes penalty or something like that. This time is own goal. Like he's
Right.
like super unlucky. It's like fourth big international event and
Yeah.
like every single time it's terrible. Anyway, let's get back to the topic of our show today.
How about Tottenham?
Yeah, it's not about football. I mean, we can probably lose. We've already probably lost some US viewers on discussing this whole topic. Uh, anyway, so what's up in F-Sharp world?
Yeah, it's. I think it's actually a good time at the moment. I mean, it's been a good time for a while now, but what we've been looking at, I guess I can only speak on that really, is a couple of things. So, like, Safe 3 is almost ready to go. So, we've basically just been doing all the docs. So, if you go onto the Safe Doc site, you see like a load of PRs have just gone in. It's not as big a change as Safe 2. Biggest things is like we're using Feliz now rather than like the Fable React Fulmer stuff. .NET 5, obviously now Saturn 5, Saturn 15, I think it is.
Yep.
Giraffe 5, all that stuff. So it's like it's more just bringing everything up to date, and so on. I think that it's in a good way. Like, if I think back to where we were when Safe first went out and like how much slicker it is now, it's really, really good. It's like the .NET Tool stuff has really helped. And even little things like we moved away from like fake script for the launch. It's actually just a program. So actually now you can do like .NET New Safe and then .NET Run. And the client and the server starts, and it's like, it just feels like a .NET sort of thing now in that regard.
Which is like on itself is really like interesting, like the transition F# community, and probably we both personally has made over the last couple of years with like diving deeper into the integration with the Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah, I think when we both sort of were starting with F#, I mean, I still remember when we were in Cambridge that time looking at, it wasn't even VS Code, it didn't exist at the time. It was, what was it?
Atom.
Atom, exactly, and looking at the integration and stuff like that. But in those days, it was like, there wasn't so much of an easy option for like F# to play nicely in the .NET world. It was all like, Visual Studio plugins and extensions and like super expensive to maintain and really hard to do. And nowadays it's I think it's a better place for F#. Probably, I guess if you ask Don, this was what his like hope was, that it's really bringing FP to the masses in the .NET world and outside of that.
I mean, the fact that it's installed by default with .NET SDK, this is just amazing.
Yeah. And I guess another good way of looking at it is like when you were doing training, and I don't know if you're still doing training courses, but when we were doing it, it was like the hardest part was the first like 10 minutes when it was like, right, everyone try and do the hello world in F#. And like one person would say, I'm on Windows and I can't get it to work. Someone else would be on Mac and it wouldn't work. And Mono was out of date, or you had different F# versions.
Yeah.
Like now we don't have any problems like that. It's like 100% success rate.
Yep, I know the feeling. So I'm not doing like trainings anymore because
the pain, the nervousness you had.
Yeah, but I'm still kind of like planning to do workshops on conferences and stuff like that. That I'm able to do that. This is not forbidden.
Good.
By my secret contracts, well, not so secret, but yeah,
not so secret anymore.
With evil corporations.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's it's exciting times.
Yeah.
So Safe. Free. So, from your experience as a kind of consulting company, do you see a lot of like adoption in .NET 5? Because that's one of the big changes in the Safe 3.0 that Giraffe and Saturn has moved to .NET 5, and that's what we'll be using right now.
Yeah, I think some of our customers have moved over already. Some not. To be fair, we haven't heard anyone say, we don't want to move to .NET 5 because it's not an LTS. No one has said that yet. We do have a couple of customers. In fact, I think one that you worked with us on a couple of years ago. They've just upgraded from 3.0 to 3.1, and that was only because 3.0 is now not in any kind of support, I think, anymore now. It was already a short-term support one. But for some companies, I think it's just that finding the time to upgrade and so on. I think it's, as an F# dev, you get some nice new features in the language and stuff. It feels like 3.1 was a bigger step forward from 2.1 in the sense of it just really rounded off. It felt more ready to use as a .NET dev. Certainly, people come from framework. 5 is I think if you looked at what they were talking about at MS Build and stuff, a lot of it was Maui and Blazor and stuff, and that stuff doesn't, at least at the moment, doesn't impact us too much on Safe. Maybe in the future Maui might do, but doesn't feel quite there yet.
Yep. I kind of like, in terms of like .NET versioning, .NET Core versioning, I feel that 2 or maybe 2.1 should be like 1.0 release.
Yeah.
And then like 3 and 3.1 should be like 2.0 release.
You could even say like 2 was really like beta, and then Core 3. It's almost like a lot of things with Microsoft. It's like version 3 is really version 1, and that's what probably. I mean, I don't know. Probably Microsoft can give you better numbers, but certainly I felt psychologically like 3.0 that was like where it felt, yeah, I've got no real objections to recommending it to customers now. Part of that, I think, was also people porting stuff from Framework. By that time, virtually everything had been done then.
Yeah.
And the SDK and the .NET command line was much better by then. Much better.
It could be even better if like people at Microsoft has merged my pull requests.
Which ones?
Well, so I've added not bunch of, but I've added one pull request with bunch of options for adding files to the project and moving files, because that's something that we, from editor tooling in F# where the order of files in the project file matters. I would love to, instead of doing like custom XML code, I would love that the same custom XML code would live inside .NET SDK.
Right.
Because it's like super weird, because right now for project management in Ionide, if you add project reference or you add package reference, we actually directly execute .NET SDK, because like that's our requirement for running Ionide nowadays. You need to have .NET SDK installed, you need to have it in path. While for adding files and like moving files around, we have custom code in FS autocomplete to do
right.
that.
So you're modifying the proj file directly and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Right. Great. Okay. Yeah, no, then I can see it. I guess you would still have to modify the project directly, though, wouldn't you, to like control the file order?
Yeah, but this would, like, the fact that we would modify the like code modifying it would live inside like the single place where it's supposed to live.
Right.
And now for some use cases that modifies project file, like adding project references, I go to one tool, and then for other use cases, I go to other tool. That makes no sense. Like, I mean, that's kind of like a bit weird. But yeah, there are reasons.
What's actually happening with Ionide now? Like, is there like, what's the next things you see happening on it, or is it mostly now, holding pattern, seeing what's next, or?
I think it's mostly, so first of all, like for the last couple of months, I've not been doing so much. So the new project kind of like takes all my mental energy. It's actually probably the first time in my like professional life when I feel that, okay, my work project is like so taxing on my like mental state.
Yeah.
Not really in negative way, but it just takes like so much like work and like mental energy that I'm not really in the mood into like looking into open source. So Chat has been doing like most of the stuff nowadays. So it's great that we have this like new, well, not new, but we have someone else that kind of like picked up a lot of work. But to be fair, Ionide is in fairly good shape in general. That's kind of like my feeling. That the lot of stuff that like Chat is like doing right now, it's mostly about mostly. Sorry, I'm looking at Chat, and Chat is like kind of like trolling me, obviously.
On Twitter or?
No. On our wonderful streaming application, you can go to Stream Chat.
I can't see anyone there. There's nothing to see here, it says.
Huh? Oh, that's surprising. Anyway, I'll also send you a link in a moment. So a lot of stuff that Chat is doing right now, and kind of like what I would be doing, is mostly like small iterative improvements rather than any like crazy big features. I think that we kind of like reached certain level of like feature completeness. And obviously, like there's like tons and tons of stuff that can be better, that can be faster, that can be more stable. So yeah, that could happen, but in principle, I think we are in really decent shape.
Absolutely, no, I definitely agree with that. Like, I was just using it today actually on a couple of projects, and I actually had the chance to do some coding today, thank God. And it's actually, the stability and like just things like refactorings and a lot of that stuff is just a lot more stable now. And it's just slicker, it's quicker.
I mean, a lot of this stuff, like, I mean, obviously, like both me in the past and Chat nowadays we've done some like performance improvements. A lot of this stuff is also thanks to like other people doing editor tooling. Team from Microsoft, or like Eugene from the JetBrains, they're like doing a lot of lot of improvements to the F-sharp compiler itself and the F-sharp compiler services as a result. So that
And that naturally feeds up into Ionide, right?
yeah, that fits into Ionide. That's the common base that we use for all the editor tooling in F-sharp, which is really like one of the most amazing things about F-sharp ecosystem, the fact that we have this common base.
I know Phil was talking last year about some sort of improvement / reworking of like the compiler service or something that might sit on top of VS as well or something. And do you know anything more happening?
I don't think anything like. So there were some like discussions about maybe having language server protocol server living inside .NET F-sharp repository with some considerations that it might have been FS autocomplete because that's the language server protocol server that we have anyway nowadays. But I think nothing has like there were like only initial discussions and nothing really happened with that.
Okay.
Which is kind of like fine. I mean, still, like obviously, it would be better if the language server protocol server was also developed as kind of like internal component. But still, the fact that we have F-sharp compiler service, this like DLL library that we can use across all the editor tooling is still so much better than vast majority of the programming languages and different ecosystems.
Absolutely. It's funny, I think sometimes people forget that, like F-sharp tooling, I mean, not only has it come a long way, but if you compare it to a lot of other languages, if you compare it to C#, then it's always like, you always lose. Every language probably loses to C#.
Yeah.
But yeah, F-sharp tooling is really in a good place now. I'm really happy with it. It's getting better all the time.
Especially, so, I mean, obviously in F-sharp, a lot of people come from the C# background, so so the comparison to the C# is obviously natural. But I think that like currently there is like huge idea of doing push towards maybe getting users from other ecosystems rather than just like playing this like zero sum game with C#. So this like in comparison to let's say Python, which probably will be one of the huge targets for like F-sharp marketing for the future. That's like the Python tooling sucks in comparison. I mean, it's terrible. Like, I mean, it is terrible, and F-sharp tooling is so amazing in comparison. That's not even like close discussion.
We're actually seeing that exact thing. Like at the moment, the last like 2 courses we've run, we had of course a few C# people on it, but actually the majority were non-C# devs. We had more Python or data analysts, or I think we had a couple of JavaScript people as well, and an Elm dev. So we're certainly seeing more of that now, and I think the .NET Core move is almost certainly one of the big drivers behind that. But yeah, and it's never a problem for those people like saying the tooling isn't good enough or anything like that. We never hear that.
It's kind of it's really mostly C# people that are saying that. It's kind of like, and they come from the place with the best, literally the best editor tooling experience that there exists. Like there is no
it's fair enough, particularly if they're using ReSharper, then it's like, you press the dot and then it's like got a sort of a suggestion like, should I write your entire program for you? It's like Clippy, but for C#, but for devs. So yeah.
So let me look. Someone in chat is saying C# tooling is only okay. TypeScript seems to be ahead. I don't think so. So TypeScript has really good. I'm using TypeScript nowadays a lot. It's my main programming language at the moment. So I have some experience with TypeScript. I think TypeScript has really good like core experience with like basic autocomplete, etc. Where the C# tooling is ahead are like refactorings and things like that. That especially like with ReSharper. One can argue whether that's necessarily like super necessary part of the editor tooling. That's kind of like debatable, but yeah, I still think that C# tooling is best.
How are you finding TypeScript? Seriously, I mean, you know.
So TypeScript is at the same time really good and really bad.
Okay, let's see the
So
really good.
no, so if you kind of like decide on the subset of TypeScript that makes sense, uh, that's kind of where the type system of to the part of the type system of the TypeScript that's kind of like similar to the what F# type system is, then it's really fun programming language. I love to use it. It's lovely. However, there is a lot of uh, type driven programming possible in the TypeScript, where where you can like do the types that depend on the other types. That's kind of like, oh, you pick from the type that you depend on only some properties, and by doing something like that you create a new type. uh, so it's basically like some craziness in style of like template programming with type system.
Right.
uh, and that's definitely way too much magic. Uh, Fortunately, so my experience is like we are building obviously Visual Studio Code extension. That's why I'm
Mhm.
working. That's not a secret. Uh, so we are using fairly like I can see how those like advanced type system magic can be useful for building reusable libraries,
Mhm.
especially if you want to move if you want to like model whatever is possible in JavaScript ecosystem with your library, then yes, I can see that. We are building application which is a bit different, so we are kind of like not using a lot of those like super complex TypeScript type system tricks. Actually, Don has yesterday, like in the night, has tweeted also something like that, exactly in the context of TypeScript.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not alone in this opinion, definitely. Uh,
I guess you probably find though TypeScript people say, "Oh, Chris is just saying that because he doesn't get it, or he likes what he knows," sort of thing. And the same way that I'm sure we probably we've seen many F# developers in the past saying, "Oh, people just say that C# is too F# is too complicated because they're coming from a language that doesn't have these types."
Yeah, and I mean that's fair point. Obviously, maybe I've started like using. So I've used TypeScript back in the preview days with like before 1.0 day to build the web applications with that. That was
Yeah.
kind of like
It was much simpler in those days.
that was 7 years ago. It was like much simpler. I really loved language, and now I'm back after those like 7 years or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And I've been following TypeScript, but I was not a user of TypeScript. So obviously, like my knowledge of TypeScript is nowhere near as good as F#. So definitely there is some fact that, oh, maybe I'm not familiar, but I just think that lot of those ideas shouldn't be in programming language type system. So the fact that TypeScript programming the TypeScript type system is Turing complete. You can actually write programs inside the type system. That tells me that something went wrong. Uh, but that's my opinion. Like
Yeah.
TypeScript team obviously thinks differently and have
Yeah.
different opinion about that,
Wow.
which
Okay.
is fine. I mean,
So you can write programs with types. Okay.
uh, I mean the same point like people are making. Whenever I argue against like higher kind of types and type classes, Haskell people or more enlightened after people try to tell me that I don't understand those features
Yeah.
and how they work, which maybe not the case really, but
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
so safe stack, we've kind of like covered that briefly. Is there like any like super killer feature in the new release that you're excited about?
Um, Let me actually think what we actually have gotten there. I'm thinking now that maybe the bigger ones are probably the stuff that is coming in. I know endpoint routing was like supposed to be a nice thing under the scenes. You can probably explain that better than me. But I get a feeling that the things that are coming with Giraffe and Saturn now are probably going to open up doors for a lot of things in the future.
Yeah, hopefully. So the endpoint routing for like those folks listening that they don't know is a new way of like creating routing for your ASP.NET applications. It's kind of similar to the routing of like which giraffe build. You kind of like it's based on the idea that you set the path, you said that it's like get or post request, and then you set the handler, which is function. This is like really nice. It is fairly limited in. It's super fast. So the main advantage of endpoint routing is that it's ridiculously fast. They're doing some smart things in how they match on the paths. They're using some smart tricks in like string comparisons and blah blah. Uh, which makes the routing way faster than what we had in like Giraffe and Saturn out of the box. So both Giraffe and Saturn has added support for using endpoint routing. It has limitations. Basically, the main limitation is that for ASP.NET needs to know whole routing table at the startup of application, which has some like without going into details, it has some implications about how you can compose your applications. It breaks some assumptions in that are in like Giraffe model, SWAF model, which makes some compositions not possible. I think it's like, yeah, never like without going into details. What is really exciting is that it seems that this will be the main way how Microsoft will do the things right now. So, for example, there is this like proxy project, like reverse proxy project that Microsoft has published a while ago. It's using endpoint routing, for example, and things like that. So, if you want to use this project, you need to use endpoint routing on your application, which kind of like even. And assuming that we will move to endpoint routing with like Giraffe and Saturn and with our users, yes, exactly, that was the name of the project. Thank you. If we move into endpoint routing, then we'll probably in the future create even like more integration with existing ecosystem that Microsoft and C# developers are building, which is exciting.
Other thing, I think Fable 3 probably is a really nice thing to add on. It's almost gone like full circle now,
Yep.
to where you know, if you think back to the early days, really early days of like Fable and then FunScript before that,
Yes.
it's like it started off as like a .NET app, then it went to an npm plugin sort of module, and now it's back. It's just a .NET tool now. And the thing I always wanted to do with Fable, but I couldn't do until now, was I just wanted to take an arbitrary F# script or file and just convert it to JavaScript.
Yep.
with nothing else in there. And
that's actually how the FunScript back in the days work.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. It's gone all the way back to that now, but using the .NET ecosystem with the tooling and everything,
yep.
Which is great. So it's almost like it now means that if you want to cross-compile to JavaScript outside of a web app, you know, like Cosmos DB, all the stored procs need to be in JavaScript.
Yep.
You could now theoretically write them in F#. And I know of at least one person that has been using Cosmos, and it's like has to drop down to JS for all the stored procs. And
yeah, I wonder if we know the same person.
Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah, so Jörg Bigman has been. So I've worked for Jörg for a couple of years, basically. In the one project we were using Cosmos DB, and he's kind of like was super focused on the idea of, well, maybe not super focused, but he used to bring the idea of, we should use Fable to do the storage procedures from time to time, especially because I hated so much writing storage procedures for Cosmos DB.
Yeah.
You need to put them as a string inside your application.
Yeah.
So basically I had to develop, JavaScript inside my F# code base just as a string.
And
dude. Yeah. And there's like zero debugging tooling for that stuff.
Yeah. So, but just the things like that, or even just, I want to learn Fable. I just want to see how it works. That whole thing of you need Webpack, you need NPM, it's all gone away. Obviously, you still probably will use Webpack or Parcel now, you can use as well. To run a web app, hot module replacement and all that stuff, but you don't need to anymore now, and that's really nice, and it's way faster, which is good. There was an issue, I think, when it first came out that it didn't support source maps, but I think that's now been
Yeah.
solved, which is good.
That's solved. Yes, that's indeed solved.
So it just seems like for Safe is almost like a good barometer, like a measure of the ecosystem in general, because it goes from one end to the other. And it's like you see just what we were doing a year ago. It's the same thing, just that much smaller now.
Yep.
Needs less code. There's less moving parts. I'm certainly less scared when I type .NET Run now that it all works than I was, 3 years ago or something. And yeah, it's just a nice environment now. So I think it's just more and better, but less hassle basically, and quicker.
I'm really kind of like super happy about the Safe stack in general.
Yeah.
It started with one email from
Yeah, exactly.
you folks, and then everything went from there.
I remember you announced it at it was either FableConf or another conf you were giving the speak talking at. You announced it.
I think that was FableConf. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun times when we could have conferences in person.
Exactly. And I remember the second FableConf when everyone was cheering you for getting your MVP. And all you did was stand up and say how much you hated me.
Yeah, man. So MVP. So I probably shouldn't say that publicly, but I think I still haven't resigned. So I still got all the emails from the mailing list.
And we're all getting renewed for another year anyway because of COVID. So you'll be there for another year, hopefully.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah. I really don't know exactly how. Yeah, I would need to go through like licensing terms because reasons.
I won't tell if you don't. No one on the chat saying
no one on the chat. No one on the chat. Like, please don't send emails to Microsoft that I shouldn't be that I should be revoked MVP status, because like half of my like software will stop running on my machine. It will be operating system and like all the Office. Yeah, we will cut that from the recording, that segment. All right, so changing a topic. So another thing that you kind of like done over the last couple of years is Farmer, and that seems like also like becoming more and more popular, and people are excited about that. Anything new happening there? Like, what's the status?
Yeah, so we've been looking at a few things on that. I mean, originally it was basically just for me to start with, because I just got fed up writing ARM templates for customers, and I was like, listen, we're doing relatively narrow set of services for customers, web apps, SQL Server, maybe Cosmos, blob storage. Let's just optimize for that. And then got bigger and bigger, and we started getting, some contributors. And now, like, one of the other admins, he's a Microsoft, he's working on the Azure team.
Yep.
Quite nice to see that. But it's got to the point now where it sort of almost reached the original goal, which was like, can we get a wide range of services in a consistent way, pluggable architecture, people are using it, and we're using it, like it's part of the Safe stack now, and it's like get rid of a whole bunch of crap in the build scripts and stuff, which is good. Now I guess the real question is, where do we go with it? There's a few things I want to look at. So kind of Farmers, like, it has this really high level API on the top where you can say, like, give me a web app, and it does all the defaults and the secret settings that no one knows about. But then behind that there's like low level types that kind of match with the ARM templates one-to-one, and those ones we have to maintain. They're basically hand rolled. And the Bicep project, we'll come to that in a minute. One of the things that relies, all the typing relies on the Swagger APIs that ARM services expose. Most of those are pretty poor, if I'm being honest. Like, most of them are just out of date. They give misleading information or whatever. So like Bicep coming in has almost forced, I think, those teams to get their act together and start making those Swagger APIs better. And one of the benefits of that is maybe we can piggyback on that to code gen these low-level APIs. Once those Swagger APIs get a bit more resilient, like I've got a prototype that you can sort of run it against the API, and you get the whole blob storage like types, you know, and you get like, you know, blobs dot, and then the version of the API, and then all the types underneath it. And there's lots of types.
Yeah, that would be really good because like in the end you need to map towards those like base types. So
Yeah.
even if Farmer provides some fancy, nice F# style API, under the hood you need to have a knowledge about those like base types
Correct.
anyway.
Yeah. So once I'm kind of, like I said, I've got a prototype for that. Once that's moved a little bit further in terms of the Swagger APIs, and we could really rely on it, then probably would do like one of the things like Bicep does, because they built their own language and their own type system from the ground up. They can do things like, if the Swagger API doesn't expose this field, well, we'll just ignore that and add our own one on anyway, sort of thing. Obviously, we can't easily do that with a record. You know, you can't just say, well, we'll trust the API, but if it doesn't work, you know, you can do your own thing. Then we're sort of into the world of dictionaries, and it becomes a lot harder then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of we've now got the control to do everything we want. Maybe giving up some of that control is not a bad thing, as long as we can rely on that foundational layer.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, the choice between how much stuff you want to spend, how much time you want to spend on maintaining this stuff.
Correct. I mean, at the moment, I'm not really spending too much time on the project, like pushing it forward. It's like Dave's doing a great job. He's like doing a lot of like the PR reviews and stuff. I'm still helping on that, but that's one of the things I'm looking at is more like V2 and maybe just tidying up the API a little bit for like deployments. So things that people have asked is like, what we do now when we deploy, we use the Azure CLI to do the deployment, and that like implicitly has a subscription that you're bound to. We sort of let you pick that subscription if you want to, but if you don't, we just say whatever the subscription is, we'll use that.
Mhm.
You might have accidentally logged into a customer subscription, and then
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So we probably would change some things like that. So you have to say what sub you want, and then just make it a bit more explicit, maybe in the future for those sorts of things. But
So
otherwise, sorry, go on.
So there's a question in chat that is there a plan to turn Farmer cloud independent? I guess the answer is no.
That's no. Yeah, I can see that. So yeah, the answer is, I guess it's no. There's nothing to stop anyone like doing the same thing. I mean, Farmer doesn't really do anything magical. It's just, here's a type on the top. We'll map it to another type on the bottom, and we'll spit out some JSON. Plus, like AWS have got like CDK, which is, from what I understand, it's actually pretty good. It's not quite Farmer, but it's a decent sort of cross-platform API. And then you've also got Pulumi, which again, it's kind of auto-generated APIs, so they haven't got the same richness of like the experience in terms of Farmer, but it's cross-platform as well. But I'm not sure really, you know, if we said with Farmer we want to make this like, I want a web app, and then target AWS or GCP or anything, I think that would just be too limiting, because each platform have their own specific things.
Yep.
And there's probably a core pipeline that we could expose as a library, and then someone could write the builders on top of it and the mappings on the bottom, but it's really not that valuable.
But this core pipeline is fairly like minimal in terms of Farmer.
Exactly.
Like,
it's basically just for each builder, call this method on the interface, get the results, collect them together, emit them into JS.
So to answer the question, making Farmer-like project for AWS or GCP is a great side project that like any of the viewers should try to implement.
Yeah, and probably with something like AWS, you could do it probably a bit more easily, because you could just write a wrapper on top of CDK, maybe,
Yep.
and not have the pain of like the whole. Like, with Farmer, the 90%, I would say now, of the pain of Farmer isn't like writing the types. It's, there's this new service that's been released. What does it do? How does it work? And like you look on, you know, the Azure docs for like the reference guide, and it's missing properties.
Yeah.
Or then you look on GitHub, and then that's missing something, and then you're in Stack Overflow land, and it's challenging. That's the hardest part, is just the understanding what we do.
But that's kind of has been a story with Azure Docs forever. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
there is like so many services, and the quality of documentation varies so much. That's been always like pain point for me when
Yeah.
I've used Azure.
I think part of it is that it almost seems to me like each team are like responsible for their own docs, their own APIs, their own sort of approach to doing things, which makes it kind of even harder to like, for us to see a consistent approach. It's just everyone's doing their own thing, which is hard. It's not easy. And I guess it's hard for Microsoft. You can't have one team that's
Yeah,
responsible for all docs, but yeah, it's challenging for us as well. But there we go. And generally, I think by farmers, like you said, it's people are using it now. We're getting some really nice feedback from it. Microsoft have sort of, the ARM/Bicep team of, they've done a bit of sort of PR for it, which is nice. And a couple of sort of other teams are using it, which is great. There's still a bit of a, like the thing I try to do with Farmer was don't talk F#. Just don't mention F#. Let's just see how it takes off as if I just talk about it as a .NET language, a .NET thing, kind of, and see how it gets on.
kind of like back in the early days, we tried to convince people to use Fake and Packet, right?
Yeah, exactly. And but I still hear even from relatively well-known people in the Microsoft tool space things like use ARM if you want this, use Bicep if you want that, and use Farm if you want a functional experience, which doesn't really make sense to me. It just seems quite a cheap cop out, to be honest. But
it's not really functional. Like, I mean, it's not really functional experience even. It's just bunch of like computation expressions, right?
just here's some data. I mean, to be honest, if you think of like ARM templates and Bicep, they're both like kind of pure functional things. You can't do anything apart from just construct some data
Yeah.
with some functions. So I'm not really sure what the difference is, to be honest, in that regard. If anything, F# is less functional because you could download a NuGet package or write to the file system or do anything.
Yep.
So, so there you go. But no, it's I'm super happy with it, and we're using it with our customers now, which is good, and it's helping everyone out. So it's kind of a win-win in that regard.
Yeah, it's even used inside Microsoft for some actually important Azure services, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, exactly. So, and Plumi's great. Yeah, you're saying I really like it, and they've done a really good job
Yep.
on there. I mean, it's taken it's been a few years now since they started doing this, and they're really going places now. So yeah, it's good.
Cool. What else we can talk about? So we have 3 incoming F# conferences. You planning to be on any of those?
Maybe the what is it? .NET Conf one. Which one is it? That one I might be on. We'll see. F# Exchange. I'll see. It's the online stuff.
Yeah, I
I
know.
find that really hard. All my jokes don't really work if I'm just talking to a monitor.
I know, man. It's like it's so different experience. Also, I kind of like I think Zaid has like tweeted something like that. Oh, that he's also doing those like live streams like me. Then
Yeah.
what's the difference between like doing live stream and kind of like doing public talk on the online
Yeah.
conference? I mean,
Yeah.
there is no really like. I mean, if he wants to do a talk, then he can do a talk anytime he wants.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, clearly some conferences are doing pretty well. Like NDC is still, they're running conferences all the time now, which is good. But yeah, it's challenging. I mean, when I spoke at NDC last year, my internet died just when I was like getting to the punchline of my talk, and that was super like frustrating as well. So yeah, there's kind of different. It's just a different feel, and it's almost like the same as the summit, the MVP summit. It's like I went to a few talks this year, but not really much. To me, the real value is going there, meeting people, and just people that you don't normally meet face to face because they're West Coast or Australia or whatever, and probably that's the only chance you can meet them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, because like, so I've attended so many conferences, so I probably, that's kind of like first world problem or something like that. But also for me, like the biggest value of the conferences was always meeting people,
Yeah.
and chatting with them outside of the actual talks.
Yeah.
That's where the value is for me. I understand that this can be different for like different people. I definitely like loved going to conferences when I was like starting with my programming career, just to like actually learn stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm kind of like personally I'm past this moment, and
Yeah.
talking with people is the most fun thing.
Yeah, and it's not just fun; it's really rewarding. You like get to meet people, you learn stuff by talking to them, or
Yeah.
you find out what people are interested in. You get a thing, what are people interested in using, and you just can't get a feel for that outside of that unless put a poll online and ask people all sorts of detailed questions and stuff. So it's yeah, and for me as well. I mean, same for you. I guess you work from home most of the time,
Yeah.
and that travel is like for me has been a big thing. Like I go back to the UK probably every 6 weeks or 8 weeks until COVID, but even outside of that, it's just a chance to go somewhere and do some traveling as well. If you work from home, it's like can be quite
Yeah,
comfortable, nice.
I mean totally. So I think I've counted that recently, and in 2019, I've done 15 talks at the conferences, which is like more than one per month, right?
Yeah,
So the traveling was crazy, and that's kind of like was important part of my like routine of
yeah,
uh, not only working but also kind of
your
like
whole life. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
this is like bit different nowadays for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
Uh, but actually, so I've seen, so I'm like subscribed to a bunch of newsletters, and I've seen that for the Atom conference season starting like from September, like vast majority of events plan to be in person again, which is interesting.
yeah, yeah. That would be really good if we get back to that place.
Yeah,
And yeah, exactly. As you say, it's difficult if you can't do the. It's a change to people's lifestyle, and for some people, I was chatting with Matthias Brandewinder, and like every year I spoke to him, though, he was like, "Next year, I'm not traveling as much. I travel
yeah.
way too much." So it's almost like been an enforced thing for someone like him, I guess, to not do that. But I'm sure he misses it as well.
Oh yeah, he does. I'm kind of like Matthias is my in my D&D group, so we play online
Oh,
from time to
really?
time. Yeah,
Okay.
we
Oh,
do.
nice.
Uh, well, every week. Yeah, he's missing travel. Like everyone is missing traveling, I think. So
I, I have a feeling that at some point in the next 18 months, like the whole world would just be like, right, let's go travel and like make up for lost time. And like the whole economy will come to a halt, but for the right reasons.
yep.
Like, like everyone just doing some travel. It's like, yeah, definitely that's something I want to do pretty soon. But yeah, we'll see.
All right. So the last important question: who will win, Germany or France? The match is starting in 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Germany. I've got to.
Uh,
I've got it. But yeah, it'll be a difficult game. Will be
yeah,
difficult for sure. France are certainly one of the favourites, aren't they? I mean, Mbappe is just.
yeah, and Benzema is back, so the best
Oh
player in
right,
the world.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a really hard game, but yeah, we'll see.
All right.
Um,
So I guess we are done for today because we both probably want to watch the game.
yeah,
It was great to chat. It was great to have you here. And last words.
no, not really. Just come on, yeah, Los geht's Deutschland. Yeah, yeah, come on, Germany. But no, seriously. The only thing I'll say is yeah, Safe 3 is very close to being ready now. I'm hoping for a release this month. So once it goes out, you can download the beta template. It's good to go. So try it out and then give us your feedback before we go 3.0.
Do we have any timeline for going stable?
Yeah, I
What's
would think like I said, within the next week or two, we're ready to do a release. It's pretty much stable now. The only issue we had was there was an issue with Fable remoting and app service. There was some crazy bug that stopped it working, but that's been fixed now. So yeah, I think we're pretty much good to go. Just documentation and just Saturn's ready now, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I think there's nothing really stopping us now. Just
awesome,
getting everything together. So yeah, next few days, hopefully.
awesome.
Cool.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching, and see you next time. I will have another episode of Dev Impressions later this week on Friday. I'll be joined by Paul Blasucci. He is great
Genius.
F sharp developer, one of my best friends in F sharp world. So it will be super fun to see him here and talk with him about why we both want to use Elixir instead of this like .NET hell. So yeah, thanks Isaac for being here, and thanks everyone for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.